And welcome. Thanks for being here. I'd like to go on and call this meeting to order on June 14th, 2022, and I'll ask our Assistant City Clerk, welcome Claudia, to call our roll.
Commissioner Galt.
Present.
Commissioner Guest.
Present.
Commissioner Henderson.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Mayor Bray.
Present. So we'll ask Commissioner Henderson to do the invocation and we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father and our God, again, we thank you for the day that you've given us, and we always thank you, Father, for the opportunity to get into your presence through prayer. We thank you, God, for the privilege that you've given each of us to serve this community, and we pray your richest blessings upon us. We thank you, God, in advance for the wisdom that you're going to give us in the challenges that we face in the days ahead. We already know that you've got the answer. We just pray for wisdom that we might see what you're saying. Bless us, O God, and we shall be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, none this evening.
Okay. So we'll start out with Michelle Smolin, who's going to make an introduction.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners, City Manager, and Assistant City Clerk. I have the great honor of introducing our new Chief Technology Director, Eric Stuber. I will let him talk about himself, but I want to let you know that his official start date is June 30th. He was actually previously with the city as a network administrator and is currently with Peel & Holland. Even though his start date's on the 30th, he has really already dug into our organization, helped with the department, and met with the GIS consortium members. And I'm even more confident now than I was during the recruitment process that his vision for technology is really aligned with the expectations of the organization, the board, and city manager. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Great.
Mayor, commissioners. So IT people usually don't like to talk, so she was like, you're gonna stand up there and tell a little bit about yourself. So I'll be brief. Of course, I was the network administrator for the city for 7 years, and then I've been at Peel & Holland for the last 10 years as their Associate Vice President of Systems and Technology and on their executive leadership team. So I'm looking forward to coming back to the city and learning, about what has changed over the last 10 years and providing leadership to the department.
Great. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting you through the interview process, of course. All of us did, but, we're really excited to have you. I think I would say that you have an opportunity to make a real impact on the city. Technology is so important to us, and it's changing so quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think as a government, sometimes it's easy to fall behind, and it's going to take a while, but I think we have to get out there more on the leading edge, in some of the things that we're looking at. So we're looking forward to your creativity and your leadership.
Thank you.
So, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Welcome.
Anybody else have anything?
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Eric.
And then we get our annual joint sewer agency update from John Hodges. Welcome,
Yes, sir.
John.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioners. Want to also thank you guys and thank Stephanie and Michelle and Darren. We're on the GIS consortium, and of course, we have a little bit more of a play with you guys that we actually are behind your firewall. You're our IT administrator. So I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the interview process we got to meet Eric pre, and then we also have been able to talk with Eric even before he's getting paid by y'all. So right now your rate's really good for him. Wish everybody would be that way. It'd be awesome. So I just want to thank you guys for letting us be part of that. That was awesome. Yeah, I do come once a year. just to come in and say hi and talk a little bit about us. I know that John Perkins has already advocated to me that your agenda is 3 pages long, so I know what my time period is. But if you drive by our treatment plant, you're going to notice, a couple of years ago we built that big tank. And now we've tried to dig a hole to China and we didn't make it. We stopped. And we have now got our diversion station and our combined sewer pump station up to grade. That's a $6.5 million job. The tank was about $8 million. We're $5 million in on this $6.5 million job. The ultimate goal, and we have one more project that we need to do, the ultimate goal will be to partially treat 80 million gallons of combined sewer flow. That's part of our EPA mandate that we've been dealing with since 2007. So I've been up here many times talking about that. And we've done a bunch of work. We're well over 60 million in on what we've been doing, and now we're hitting some of these big high dollar projects. The next job that we'll do is still over at our plant, and we've been working with Rick because we will need to go through the flood wall, and it's a discharge for this. So this project that we're working on right now is going to be 20 million gallon day capacity. It will put the tank in service. It will help us to process smaller rain event flows through our treatment plant. When we get done with the project that we will probably let next year, we'll be able to pump and treat partially 80 million gallons of flow. And for percentages, that's probably 20% of what the flood wall can pump out there at the plant, or out with pump station number 2. The big pump that you guys have there. So that project we thought was going to cost probably $7 million. It ain't going to cost $7 million anymore. It's going to cost probably more in the range of $10 million based on all the inflationary measure. I don't think the Ukraine war is good for ductile iron. I think that's where all the pig iron comes for ductile iron. So what a pipe used to cost doesn't cost that much, and you have long lead times for that stuff right now. But we still have to keep going. There are some ARPA opportunities for us, but most of our opportunity with ARPA is through KIA in low interest loans. And so to get those, you have to be good with your rates. And of course, the major driver for our rates is not really our operational cost. It's our capital program. And so we have a pretty large capital program. Commissioner Galt serves on our board. She's well aware of all the management that we do there. Fortunate thing is our rates are still low. We're probably in the 70% of the state average when you look at 2018 numbers. So all these folks have gone up, so we're probably better than what I think we are now. But we are going to, and our rate ordinance allows us to do an adjustment based on consumer price index. And we try to do those every year to have small increments to keep our rates where we can borrow this money for KIA, get these low interest loans instead of bonding and doing things like that where we have to pay higher interest. But we're not going to take, cost of living right now is like 8-9%. We're not doing that. We don't want to do that. We looked at 4%. So even though the ordinance says that we can go up to the consumer price index, we're not doing that. The good news is that our rates are low and our bills are not like power bills or whatnot. About a third of our customers are minimum users, and the impact to a minimum user is less than $1. It's like 72 cents. So our rate will go from $6.18 per 1,000 gallons to $6.42. Minimum usage for a third of our customers will go from $18.54 to $19.26. If you want to look at what an average sewer bill is, it's around 5,000 gallons. Right now, that would be $30.90, and that would go to roughly $32.10. So even for your regular family, it's $1.20. So trying to keep our rates low for these folks. And we also have changes to our surcharges for industrial users. These aren't significant necessarily either. And I'll say some words that you may not know, but for BOD, we go from 24 cents a pound to 25 cents a pound. For total suspended solids, we go from 25 cents a pound to 26 cents per pound. Nitrogen as ammonia is 61 cents to 63 cents per pound. Oil and grease goes from 36 cents to 37 cents per pound. And then for our waste hauler folks that haul septic loads to us, we charge them now $45 per thousand, and that's going to go up $1 to 46. And so I always come by to mention that. I don't think it's necessarily required by law, but I'll always try to be transparent about what we're doing. And like I said, the good news is that we've got this big capital plan, but if you look at us from a competitive standpoint with the people that are under the same environmental condition that we are, we're in better shape than they are from a rate standpoint. And we're still better than the average rate. And if you forecast the rates from 2018 in the 2 to 3% range, we're still going to be about 70% of the state average. So, didn't know if you guys had any questions or comments for me.
I know one of the things you and I talked about was your debt load.
Got to watch your debt load.
How has that trended over the last couple of years?
Well, our debt load is manageable for us. But what you have to do, what we did a long time ago, when we knew back in '07, we knew we were going to have to borrow money. What you don't want to do is you don't want to borrow a bunch at one time. You want to spread that borrowing out. So I started to borrow money early and use my cash judiciously for certain things so that I could pay off that debt early and not have what you would say would be a, and we all know, I'm not picking on Paducah Power, but you know Paducah Power borrowed $500 million at one time, and that's not what we want to do. And so the good news is that some of our debt will roll off in the 2030 range while we're putting new debt on. We're not like a water company that you're going to deal with in the state of Kentucky. Sanitary sewer is not like water. They have very low debt, and all of the sanitary utilities have tremendous amounts of debt. Murray has borrowed $45 million for a treatment plant. Owensboro will have to borrow $45 million for just their treatment plant, in addition to all the combined sewer work that we're going. So our debt load right now for the sewers, I can't remember the exact number, but we're in the $20 million range, and that's going to go higher. And our overall operating revenue is right at $9 million. Our operating costs are in the $4.5 to $5 million range based on inflation. And I think Commissioner Galt will second the fact that we look at that pretty hard, because you have to have as low of operating costs as possible in order to be able to keep your rate low and afford your capital plan. And so it's key for me to go through the KIA program. The $6.5 million job that we're working on right now, the interest rate that we have is 0.5%. And then you pay a service fee on top of that. So essentially you're paying very low interest. And that's why I want to be attractive to them, because that seems to be the best deal that I can get for what we do. But debt load is something and that we look at. Operating costs is something I look at all the time. And like I said, it's just different than what you're going to see for a lot of these other utilities. It's not going to be unique for a utility. I talked to a consultant, and that's why he's a consultant and not on my side, because I talked about our debt, and he was like, well, I think we were talking about $100 million. Well, that's nothing. I'm like, no, that's not nothing, dude. That's why you're over here, because I'd have a heart attack if I had that kind of debt. But that's something that we're always very concerned about. And when you can get too much debt and lose your bond rating, and that's something that I've got to keep. There's a balance of cash that you can keep to manage, to show the debt that you can do, and to keep your bond rating. Because if we don't get KIA money, and it's very competitive, then we'll have to look at other avenues, and your bond rating matters. And so all of that comes into play with what we do.
And KIA stands for?
It's the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority.
Okay.
And EPA a long time ago gave money called the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And so the states administer that program.
That's it.
And that's under the Department for Local Government for the state. Fun times.
Well, fun subjects, sewers and stormwater.
That's right.
So, but we do appreciate you being here. Anybody have any questions? thoughts for John?
No,
Carol?
I just want to take a minute to brag on John just a little bit. He hates it when we do this, but
Because bad
he-
stuff happens after you.
Don't jinx him.
I won't. But he is probably one of the most conscientious department heads, if you will, that I have ever worked with. Every T crossed, every I dotted, and always working hand in hand with the board. And it's really a nice board to serve on. He always thinks ahead and has it there, and we always have multiple avenues. So I'm very appreciative of the work he does.
What you need to realize, we're just a bunch of people, and we're going to make mistakes, and you hope you can minimize your mistakes. And then we have so little control over what goes through our pipe. We had calls this week about odor, and I didn't have the heart to tell the guy, "You're the one doing it to me." You have so little control. So as good as you think you're doing, you're just one bad day away from folks thinking you're not doing that great of a job.
I don't know why I want to drill down on that discussion, but
Right, yeah, exactly.
take your word for it, so.
All right.
And high temperatures don't help either, right?
High temperatures do not help. No, they don't.
We appreciate you being here very much, John.
All right,
And
thank
we
you.
appreciate the job you do for our community.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, before we get into the consent agenda, I got a couple things I want to mention. First of all, next Monday, actually, the first official national holiday of Juneteenth is coming up this next Monday. And this is a very important celebration. It was recognized nationally as a holiday. The city followed suit and recognized it as a holiday, and so we're celebrating it this coming Monday. Juneteenth is a celebration that essentially celebrates when the slaves in this country got the news that they were freed. And one of the things that Paducah enjoys here is a celebration that many of you probably are aware. It's the August 8th celebration. And the August 8th celebration actually is a celebration of the day that the news reached our particular area, Paducah and Western Kentucky. But this Juneteenth holiday is a national holiday, and it recognizes and memorializes this event. Actually, when people got the news, it was not a single day. It was spread across, because of transportation back then, it was spread across geographically different days, different weeks, different months. But this holiday coming up in June, next Monday, is a national holiday, and the NAACP and the Carson Center are partnering. The City of Paducah, the McCracken County, CSI, there's other sponsors that have jumped in that are helping sponsor this event at the Carson Center. So the city is excited to be a part of that event. And I would encourage everybody to please, be aware, come out to the event. There's going to be food, speakers. The speaker program will be about an hour. And then we'll have box lunches, and there will be a celebration where we can all kind of just mingle and get to know each other. So I just want to make our fellow commissioners, you've probably seen some of it, seen something on it, but hope you have a chance to get out there. Any questions or thoughts on that one? My next comments have to do with 911 and our local, the two projects that we got going on right now in the community, important projects. Our outdoor sports complex and 911, and I certainly want to let any of our fellow commissioners, my fellow commissioners, weigh in on this. We're working through, an opportunity to try to get a decision made on how we're going to replace an antiquated and outdated 911 system. This is a project, it feels a little bit it feels a little like Groundhog Day for me, going over this, because we've kind of talked about it in the past. There's a long history of 911 and the city. We have a system that's really was communicated to us in 2017 that it was at end of life. And we have identified dead spots in our system in the city and county. The city owns the 911 system, and we chose to make a lot of the upgrades ourselves. The county is really, I guess for lack of a better word, leasing space on our system currently. And if you go back, there's a long history. I've actually looked at it several times. But if you look back at when this commission was elected a year and a half ago, and we actually took office, one of our priorities was 911, and to try to get that get that system updated and get decisions made. And so one of the things that happened along that time is that the county came to us, and we had, just for everybody's recollection, we had $19.8 million in bond funds that were available to us after we decided to not move forward with the aquatic center. The county came to us and they asked us to come into full partnership on the outdoor sports complex, which we agreed to under the circumstances that they would become full partners with us on 911. And now the two projects have been on different timelines, but we did sign MOUs for both projects on the same day. And so we got started. We actually agreed to refresh the study with federal engineering, and we actually have appointed a committee that is a 911 active committee that is looking at what the recommendations are. So we are working very hard to get a decision made on exactly how we're going to move forward with 911. And that is a very important project for the city. And it's something that I know the county, in the latest meeting they had last night, I think there's a little bit of concern about the projects being associated with each other. And the only thing I would say is that the city has to really have an understanding of exactly how and under what time frame we're going to move forward with the 911. And we have full plans to support the outdoor sports complex, but the 911 system continues to be a concern for us. And I think it's a concern because the history of the working with the county on the 911 system, they've really not come forward into a full partnership. And there's been some opportunities in the past to do that. And so we just have to have more certainty, really, that we're headed down that road of full partnership. So I have a lot of confidence that we can move forward and that we will work this out. The city works with the county on projects every single day. We're partners on so many things, and it's so important to the community, that we continue to be partners. But this is one of those areas that we certainly have a responsibility to the city residents, as well as the entire community, to make sure that in the interest of public safety, that we address our outdated system. So those are just a few remarks I wanted to make, and I know that Commissioner Galt serves on the 911 committee, and anybody else that's got any remarks, I'm certainly would invite anybody that wants got anything they'd like to say.
Say good.
The only thing I would like to say is I just want us to, I've talked to you about this, Mayor, but I have not the commission as a whole, and I just want us to keep in mind that this committee, the 5-person 911 committee, has been meeting every other week since February. They're working very hard to get something done in a timely manner, but it has come down to a matter of economics. And it's, there's been over $155,000 spent to gather information, garner opinions, and now we, in partnership with the county, have signed a contract to get the RFP written, and that has started the clock running. What we don't know is, once those numbers come in, we know that there'll be a very short window for us to make a decision. But we don't know if we may have to pay for a fourth of it or a half of it, or how much we would have to pay. And we have a finite amount of money. It's not that we can't continue to work a deal on the back end to get that done, but we have and this is something I don't know that you all may realize, but we have over half of our employees that are first responders that depend on that radio system as a lifeline. So every time the longer it goes, the more we're asking them to do with less. And it's just a matter of economics and responsibility. And I don't want it to get personal. It's not an us
Right.
versus them situation at all. It's strictly a matter of taking care of our priority and our employees first, and then following suit afterwards. And I don't know any other way to make it as simple as that, but it is that simple.
It's just, it's our top priority.
Correct.
Really. I mean, and, those bond funds that we borrowed money for and are paying interest on right now, are available for just a finite amount of projects.
Yes.
And so whether or not we have full partnership and what the financial implications of that really are really determine the amount of money that we can allocate for other projects. And I was looking back in my notes, and a year ago this month, we had this very same conversation. And my concern is that if we don't set a timeline to get something done, a year from now, we will be having the same conversation. That is my concern.
As well it should be.
So how would we move forward in setting the timeline? You're talking about that.
I don't know. I think we need to explore. I think I need to have some conversations with the county. I've got some ideas. I don't have anything definite right now. But that's one way that we could, try to move forward is establish a timeline to get something done. I did tell the judge, we had a meeting last Friday, and he asked me whether or not the city would sign the ILA if we got everything that we wanted on the sports complex. Would we still not sign the ILA for this? I'm gonna get confused here.
For the sports
For the sportsplex. Without an ILA for the 911. And I responded, no, we wouldn't. But I think, in the moment, that was the way I responded to him. But I understand the importance, of this project for the community. And if there's a way that we can see to draw an end to this year after year of trying to decide what we're going to do and hiring consultants and giving us recommendations and then pushing it out and, then I'm willing to explore it. So I don't have the answer to that. It's a long way to say that.
Have they proposed any suggestions on how that they would come back to us with a different proposal?
What they've said is that they've signed an MOU, and the MOU says that they will, in good faith, negotiate with us, a 911 agreement. And, but we signed that last year. And so now we're, 6 months into the 911 committee meeting, and I'm watching what's going on, and I'm talking to people, and I'm listening, and I got my ear to the ground, and I'm concerned about the sense of urgency to get it done.
I think that once the RFP comes in, once it's written and it comes back in and it's let, you're going to have a very short time frame, and you'll know the numbers at that point. We'll all have, and they're probably, my guess is, and I don't know this, we haven't talked about it in detail, but my guess is there will be a recommendation from that committee because they've looked at various options for creating a revenue stream. They've looked at various options, and they've talked to attorneys to know what will fly, what will not, what other communities have done. They have all that information. So I would say once that RFP comes in and there's some numbers that they can attach to it to be able to fund it, I think that they will come forward with a recommendation to both fiscal court and the commission.
The committee,
Don't you have
the
that
911 committee
feeling?
will.
Yes.
Yes,
Not
the
the
911.
committee will. And I know we have held money set aside from those bond proceeds for 911, a certain amount.
Well, you've not taken official action, and I'm glad you asked the question that way, because I did want to remind the commission that we are talking about on the clock for making a final determination with our bond council of how we're going to fully allocate. The only thing that you've done officially is to allocate towards the airport of that 19.8, and that was the 3 million. But we have roughly a couple months to get, and I'll look back at John, we're roughly within 90 days, we need to have something back to bond council and acted on that outlines where we are going to allocate those funds. Is that correct? Yeah. And so, yeah. And so to that point, we won't know at that point in relationship to 911 how much money that we are. But, so that's why it's a sense of urgency on our part as well to understand what that partnership's going to look like on both of those things. The other side is that we are using bond funds, whether they go towards a portion of the sports complex, a portion of 911, all in one pot, all in the other pot, whereas because they are bond funds and we're already paying on them, the county's first portion of the sportsplex is federal money that they are getting, so they're not under that same urgency because they're using $12.5 million of ARPA funds that they're not paying debt service on. So their sense of urgency on that is not, yes, it's a sense of urgency from their part for the community of a quality of place going forward for the sportsplex. Our sense of urgency is a quality of life issue for the 911 and already paying debt service on that, whether it's to the full amount or not. And so that's why there's a little bit there as well as that time clock that we're on.
Nothing else? We all good? So we will press forward. And continue to try to get something done for the benefit of the community, city residents and the community. So, okay. From there, we're going to move into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval. Would any commissioner like an item removed for separate discussion? We all good? Okay, so I'll ask the Assistant City Clerk to please read the items recommended for approval.
Approve minutes for May 24, 2022 Paducah Board of Commissioners meeting. Receive and file documents. Reappointment of Susan Carr to the Paducah McCracken County Joint Sewer Agency. Said term shall expire June 30, 2026. Reappointment of Thomas M. Whittemore and Keisha Curry to the Paducah Area Transit System Board. Said term shall expire June 30, 2026. Appointment of Edward Box to the Civil Service Commission to replace the late Martin Bendick. Said term shall expire May 13, 2023. Personnel actions. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Systems Solutions of Paducah, Kentucky in an amount of $50,283.70 for procurement of security system software and hardware for the Paducah Police Department. A municipal order accepting grant funds through the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, KOHS, for a 2021 grant award in the amount of $93,900 for the purchase of an X-ray machine for the bomb squad, and authorizing the mayor to execute the grant agreement and all documents related to same. A municipal order accepting the bid of Scana MSC, Inc. for sale to the City of Paducah, one Scan Silk 1824 portable X-ray unit and accessories in the amount of $93,864 for use by the Paducah Police Department Bomb Squad unit, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. A municipal order authorizing the finance director to make payment to Tyler Technologies, Inc. for ongoing maintenance related to the computer-aided dispatch system for fiscal year 2022 and subsequent years as appropriated, in accordance with the license and services agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. A municipal order approving a fleet maintenance, motorized equipment, and emergency apparatus service agreement with the Smithland Fire Department to provide fleet maintenance service at hourly rates, and authorizing the execution of all documents related to same. A municipal order authorizing the purchase of rollout containers, lids, and additional replacement parts from Toter, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $140,000 for the Public Works Solid Waste Division. A municipal order authorizing the acceptance of a crumb rubber grant in the amount of $22,000 from the Kentucky Department of Environmental Protection for a poured-in-place playground, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. A municipal order adopting the FY 2022-2023 job grade schedule for the employees of the City of Paducah, and a municipal order adopting the FY 2022-2023 position and pay schedule for the full-time employees of the City of Paducah, Kentucky.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. Okay, we have one municipal order, and I'll ask the city clerk, Assistant City Clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Contract with the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau in the amount of $25,000 for specific services related to the American Quilter Society Spring 2022 show."
So moved.
Second.
Mayor and Commission, this is to memorialize the previously agreed upon to support this last year's, funding to support this past last year's quilt show. Historically, we have worked through the Convention and Visitors Bureau to allocate those dollars. They will collect the data, the receipts, and the documentation to support that, but they would, this would go to them, and then they would allocate that out to AQS.
So a little bit of history here. I mean, I've spent some time trying to understand the history around the quilt show. I mean, of course, we didn't have the quilt show for a couple of years, because of COVID. So this is the first year we came back. They had a successful show. We we traditionally, in the past, the city has provided monies as an incentive to help the quilt show be put on here because it was such an important community event. At one time, we gave the quilt show a lot more money than that. But this kind of is the amount that we settled on for this year. And so we have, the quilt show is it's a very interesting event for our community. We're kind of known as Quilt City, USA. For 4 or 5 days, we have 30,000 quilters, descend on our community. And so they're in and out. And so it's a big effort. The convention center makes a huge effort themselves to make sure that we can put it on. We have to put the bubble up, and that's not fun, and it's not really a permanent structure. And in the long run, we probably have some decisions to make, about the bubble. But the $25,000 is really monies that the city invests in that event to make sure it comes off effectively, and does great for the community. So, sorry, my comments. City, call roll, please.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. Okay, we have four ordinances to adopt. They've all been read previously. I know we've got people here to answer questions if we have any. So I'll go ahead and let the Assistant City Clerk read the first one.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled "An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, authorizing the amendment and supplement of the bond purchase agreement dated as of November 1, 2015, by and among the city, Paducah Riverfront Hotels, LP, Independence Bank of Kentucky as servicing agent, and Independence Bank of Kentucky as original purchaser, for the purposes of establishing the interest rate applicable to the city's industrial building revenue bond, Series 2015, Paducah Riverfront Hotel LP project for the period beginning on and including May 1, 2022, but excluding the second optional tender date applicable thereto, and authorizing other actions in connection with the amendment of the bond purchase agreement and the Series 2015 bond. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends and supplements an ordinance 2015-88283 of the city previously adopted on August 25, 2015, hereinafter titled the prior ordinance. The prior ordinance authorized the issuance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky Industrial Building Revenue Bond, Series 2015, Paducah Riverfront Hotel LP project, in an amount up to $12 million. The Series 2015 bond to finance the cost of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of a building suitable for use as a hotel, together with all related and subordinate facilities necessary for the operation thereof, for lease to Paducah Riverfront Hotel LP, the tenant. Certain terms of the Series 2015 bond are governed by a bond purchase agreement, the bond purchase agreement, by and among the city, the tenant, Independence Bank of Kentucky, as servicing agent for the city with respect to the Series 2015 bond thereunder, the servicing agent, and Independence Bank of Kentucky as original purchaser of the Series 2015 bond, the original purchaser. The amending ordinance authorizes the amendment of the bond purchase agreement and the Series 2015 bond to require an interest rate per annum of 4.75% to apply to the Series 2015 bond from May 1, 2022 to April 30, 2027, and to provide for 8 consecutive monthly interest-only payments beginning June 1, 2022. The prior ordinance provides that pursuant to Sections 103.200 through 103.285 inclusive of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, the Series 2015 bond will constitute a special and limited obligation of the city payable solely from receipts and security derived from the tenant.
So move.
Second.
Do we need a discussion on this one? This is a interest rate reset. That really doesn't affect the city at all. Are we good to go? Okay. So please call roll.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, Claudia, you can read the next one.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled an ordinance. This is- Rewind. A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute contract modification number 1 with HDR Inc. in an amount of $86,200 to increase the scope in the professional services contract to include engineering, drawings, and specifications, bidding administration, project inspection, monitoring, administration, and reporting. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute contract modification number 1 with HDR Inc. for the dredging project for additional services in an amount not to exceed $86,200 and a decrease in the amount of $25,785 for a net increase of $60,415 and a new total contract cost of $326,665. This expenditure shall be charged to the dredging project account DT0047.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. Okay, Claudia, you can read the next one. This is the interlocal cooperation agreement with the City of Mayfield.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, authorizing and approving an interlocal agreement with the City of Mayfield, Kentucky regarding building inspection and plan review services and authorizing the execution of all documents related to same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement and all documents related to same with the City of Mayfield, Kentucky, for the purpose of the City of Mayfield engaging the services of the City of Paducah to assist with building inspection and building plan review. The duration of said agreement shall be from the effective date of the agreement to June 30, 2024, and may be renewed for one additional 3-year term upon agreement of the parties at least 90 days prior to expiration of the initial term with approval from the Paducah Board of Commissioners.
So move.
Second.
So just to review, I mean, this is interlocal agreement to help Mayfield with inspections, and Mayor Onan called me early on asking for our assistance, and I got involved with this early on, and you know, the Mayfield is paying, you know, us for any services that we provide. I mean, it's a very equitable arrangement, but at the same time, we are offering our services, you know, to help them in a rebuilding effort over there that's going to take a significant amount of time. So, Claudia, you can call roll.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. Okay, you can read the budget ordinance.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky Annual Operating Budget for the Fiscal Year July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023, by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government." This ordinance is summarized as follows: adopting the City of Paducah annual budget for fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023, by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government at $96,749,577, and summarized by funds as follows. Funds, general appropriations, $43,276,785. MAP, $1,601,280. Investment, $5,810,790. CDBG, $200,000. E911, $2,571,530. Court awards, $90,800. Room tax, $1,840,000. Debt, $3,555,320. CIP, $1,760,000. Bond fund, $19,800,000. Solid waste, $6,900,651. Transient boat dock, $129,112. Civic center, $35,445. Rental, $132,210. Radio depreciation, $163,860. Fleet maintenance, $806,964. Fleet lease trust, $2,013,695. Insurance, $1,364,560. Health insurance, $3,665,600. PFPF, $945,655. Other trust, $85,320, for a total of $96,749,577.
So moved.
Second.
Anything to say?
I think we've had a great budget session. Again, kudos to our finance team for their hard work and long hours of getting us to the point, and for the commission and the mayor for your involvement in that, and to all of our team members for getting us to this point, and looking to get this adopted so finance can put the bow on it and we get ready for the next fiscal year.
So I just want to say, I'll say this. I am very proud to be associated with a city that is well-managed and well-run and takes care of our finances the way that we do. Because not everybody, not every government entity, not every city is run that way. And I think, the planning that we go through every year to try to make sure that we allocate our money properly and that it's fairly allocated, and I think it's an unbelievable process. So I just kudos to everybody that's been involved in the process and what we've accomplished through the years, because it doesn't happen just all in one year. It's a series of decisions that have been made over many years. So you can call roll. Off my soapbox.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. Okay, we have two ordinances to introduce. The first one is a zoning text amendment, and I would ask our Assistant City Clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Sections 126-73, 126-83, and 126-108 of the Paducah Code of Ordinances. This amendment allows for staff approval of certain home occupations, greater tree canopy protections for proposed new developments, revised mobile food vehicles to reflect the changes adopted by the National Fire Prevention Association, and allows hotel motel rooms, short-term rental rooms, and bed and breakfast rooms to be allowed above, below, or in the rear one-third of the ground floor in the downtown business town lift zone, B2T, and the historic commercial zone, H1, to protect street character and vitality.
Josh, why don't you tell us about this?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager. We do have 5 text amendments to come before you all tonight, and these have been to the Planning Commission on May 5th, and they are recommending a positive recommendation on all the text amendments. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is staff approval for certain kinds of home occupations. Currently, home occupations go through the Board of Adjustment, and that takes 3 weeks to submit the application, then the hearing. The way that the city of Hopkinsville does this is there's certain parameters in which they allow staff approval of certain home occupations. If a proposed business does not have anyone that works there residing there as well besides the occupant, no storage or stock of goods in the property, no customers, no signs, and if the home occupation is incidental and subordinate to the residential use, they have petitioners come to their planning department, they sign off on it, and send them to finance. The City of Paducah planning staff would like to replicate that here because it would save time for up to 3 weeks minimum for petitioners whenever there's not going to be any traffic generation, no signs or anything like that. You would just be driving by a regular house and never know that there's a business there. And the typical kinds of businesses that this really revolves around is internet sales, sometimes caterers, party planners, that sort of thing. The second thing I'd like to talk about is landscape regulations, and the vast majority of this revolves around new tree regulations. Our existing ordinance states that existing trees should be preserved where possible. However, that's pretty ambiguous. So we worked with the tree board to come up with a text amendment to present to you all tonight that's more definable. And the first thing I'd like to mention is that trees larger in diameter than 15 inches, which would be considered significant, and 30 inches, which is considered historic, are intended to be preserved on new sites to be developed. However, if they're going to propose to plant new trees or come up with a more creative way for landscaping, then they could be removed with the zoning administrator's approval, and that will be done at the site plan review level. A tree protection zone shall be established, and along with that, tree protection fencing. And what that is the outer edge of a significant or historic tree. Because when you think about where the water runs off, it goes to the extent of that drip line at the edges of the leaves. And the reason we're proposing to establish the tree protection zone there is because the roots actually go out as far as the branches do. There's just as much of that tree underground as what you see above the ground. And proposed trees will be selected from a list that would be of approved trees, and we would also have a list of non-approved trees. That is a document that's going to be referenced in our ordinance, but not necessarily incorporated because, pardon the pun, but it's meant to be a living document. So whenever it changes with tree board recommendation, we don't want to have to come back before this body and have to tweak it every single time. We're also proposing for 200 square feet to be established around trees within islands or peninsulas to make sure that tree has room to grow and mature. We've also devised 3 different classes of trees on how big they should be when they're planted, which we have shade and canopy trees, which is your oaks and your maples, your ornamental trees, which is more of a dogwood or a crabapple, and then multi-stemmed trees, which is like a crepe myrtle or a river birch, something along that lines, because they all need to be treated differently, and we've got the tree board's input on that. The other significant change to landscaping is that right now in our zoning ordinance, we allow commercial and industrial uses to be right next to residential uses, whether it's a single-family home, duplex, or multifamily. For example, in a B3 zone, a new restaurant could go right in next to a house with no protection on that property line. This text amendment would require a new business to provide screening between the new business and the house. That way it affords protection to that resident. The next text amendment is mobile food trucks and food tents. This change was requested by the Fire Prevention Division to stay in line with the National Fire Protection Association. Whenever they changed their code, they wanted to make sure that they're always up to date by reference in our ordinance. And that was something that their attorneys had asked us to revise, and so we're bringing it to you all tonight. The B2T Downtown Business Town Lift Zone is the corridor that runs roughly from Water Street to 7th on both sides of Broadway. We are allowing hotels and motels and bed and breakfast to be principally permitted uses, which they are now. But the other item we wanted to make sure that happens along Broadway is street vitality. Right now, we don't allow residential uses on the ground floor of Broadway except in the rear third. And what this text amendment would do would include in that short-term rental uses, hotels and motels, and bed and breakfast, to where those types of uses could be in the rear third, above the ground floor, or below it. And that way, street vitality is maintained along the Broadway corridor. And the text amendment for the H1 zone, which is around the Market House, mirrors that text amendment for the street vitality around the Market House Square as well. So with that, I would be glad to answer any questions you all may have.
Give me an example of the last thing on the ground floor residences, how that, give me a
Sure.
specific example how that affects the change there.
Sure. What a hotel room or a bed and breakfast room or a residence does is it just creates dead space, meaning there's not commercial activity taking place there. There's no exchange of goods or services. There's nobody coming in and out the door on a regular basis for that turnover. The ground floor has always been historically commercial in both of these zones, and so in order to bring that back to its vitality that we had in the past, staff felt like this text amendment was important.
So in order to attract residences on the ground, residential use on the ground floor. Did I understand that right?
Well, it would
Am I
be on
missing something?
either the rear third of the ground floor, above or below the ground floor. That ground floor is meant to be used by commercial uses only.
Mm-hmm.
That way we have people going up and down the street, buying things, paying for services, that type of activity that was there historically.
So this opens up the back third of the bottom for residential purposes.
Yes, that is
Did I
correct.
say that correctly?
Yeah. Or short-term, like you said, for B&B
Or short-
or
or
hotel,
Airbnb,
right,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
Those
You know, a lot
type
of communities have adopted that model to allow for a property owner to get more use out of that building, and it expands it. But it also keeps the requirement for a commercial space, and so you're not on the streetscape, and you're not having, a couch out front as you're driving down
Right.
Broadway on the street side.
Right.
Somebody sitting there.
Well, let's say hypothetically, we're going to have a new hotel in that area.
Mhm.
Is that saying that the bottom floor of that new hotel can only be, a third of it can be hotel?
Just the rooms. If it's a lobby, if it's a restaurant, if it's a workout area, that can cover as much of the first floor as they'd like.
But only, let's hypothetically say that it's 9,000 square feet on the bottom floor. Only 3,000 square feet could be used for rooms.
If it goes into in our existing fabric, then yes, but if it's a new build, then it would just follow the zoning code. So, but if it's existing, then yes, it would be the the rooms could be rented in the rear third. The front 2/3 could be their lobby, their restaurant, their workout space, whatever that may entail.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? Okay, I think we have a visitor tonight, a resident who wanted to talk about this text amendment. Dewan, did you want to come up and? Thank you,
Thank you.
Josh.
Right. Thank you for the opportunity. As y'all know, I'm Dewan Thomas, also running for Paducah City Commission here in the city. And in keeping within the agenda that I received, where it talks about the text amendments, and in there it also talks about the commission's priorities, which are improving operational efficiency and community growth. And I'm saying this in relating to that zoning ordinance. As leaders, our job is to ensure the city is running efficiently and the community is in our best interest. But we can't call ourselves leaders if we allow our friends or other outside influences dictate how the inner workings of our government goes. And the job of the commission and mayor should prioritize correcting outdated ordinances, not enforcing them because our friends may want us to. As it relates to Chapter 126 in the zoning ordinance, there are also many other texts that need the commission's attention and not a blind eye. And just using that as an example, one of these is 126-76, Section D, about temporary signs. And again, only using this as an example, with this ordinance, the Supreme Court ruled the display of political signs and other types of signs on residential property is a unique, important, and protected means of communications, and towns can't restrict that display of such signs. And if the ordinance requires an official to read the sign to determine how it's regulated, then the ordinance is likely content-based and presumptively unconstitutional. So my question is, in relating to that, will you stand for what's right, or will you allow money and influence to dictate our governance here in the city? Because it goes deeper than just me. It's about constitutional rights for everybody. So my main questions are, who checks the legality of our ordinances, if y'all would be able to answer that? And then I have another one, or should I ask them both now?
Mayor Bray, does that pertain to this ordinance we've just read?
Yes, it does. The ordinance that I received right here states, it was very broad, so in keeping with that, it was talking about zoning text of several sections, and that's all it stated on the agenda that I received. And this relates to ordinances in the broad spectrum that I was given, and just asking that question, who checks the legality of our ordinances, and also whose job is it to repeal these ordinances if they're out of date or needing to be revised, like the ones we've discussed here today?
Well, is that two questions?
Yes, sir.
Is that your two questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first question, who checks, we've got ordinances that have been on the books since, probably, maybe I don't know, 75, 100 years, and so typically, I think that we find out from various means when an ordinance is out of date. For example, the ordinance that you're referring to, someone had alerted us prior to you coming tonight, that we needed to take a look at it. And so, we've already started the process of rewriting that ordinance. So that's kind of the process that goes through. Now, what was the second question?
And then, well, I guess you kind of answered that. Whose job is it to repeal these ordinances? But
I mean, it's the government's job. Nobody's perfect. We've got a lot of ordinances out there. So we take a look at them. When they come up, we take every opportunity to refresh our ordinances. We're refreshing them pretty consistently. So we'll be refreshing this one as well.
okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, though, just not only for Mr. Thomas, but also the general public, that oftentimes legal counsel reviews them before they ever get to us. I mean, there are a couple of different firms, both which have longstanding ties with the Kentucky League of Cities, and they review those, I would say, every time before we ever get it.
Right.
So I think that's important to note, that we do have counsel that does that.
I think DeJuan's calling out that, we've got a sign ordinance that's out of date. I mean, the bottom line.
I
But we
get-
didn't know it was out of date, so.
That's correct.
Correct
It
me
was
if I'm
brought,
wrong.
no, it was brought to our team's attention, and appropriately, they acted diligently. But Commissioner, to your point, before an elected body votes on it, it does go through a legal
Yeah.
review. And that ordinance, as oftentimes says, is that legal opinions change. And in this case, when that was originally adopted, it met the legal litmus test to be an appropriate and adoptable ordinance. Since then, there's been different legal opinions that Supreme Court ruling, as Mr. Thomas referred to, that has changed that. So the original adoption was appropriate, it was legal, that there has been subsequent Supreme Court ruling that now makes it a need for it to go back and review and re-adopt.
And likely,
There's others.
Mr. Thomas, if you'd like to look through our ordinances and see if you can find any more, I would invite you to do that. You'd probably find some. But I feel, we've got ordinances literally that have been on the books for, 100 years, and I'm sure we've probably got some that are out of date.
And our community is not unique to that either.
Yeah, so, but thanks for being here tonight, okay? Okay, we've got one more
Need a
discussion.
motion to introduce.
Oh. I'm
Just
sorry?
just a motion and a second for introduction.
And a second to introduce, no vote, just a motion and a second.
On what?
On that
On
first.
the sign, on the
I think it's
Okay.
Commissioner Henderson's turn.
signing text.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Oh, is that what you're trying to say? It went so long, I forgot what we were talking about.
You messed up, I messed up, so now we're
So moved.
assistant,
Yeah, but we.
assistant city clerk, would you please
There won't be a
call
vote.
roll?
No,
Just a
Just a motion and a second.
second.
Okay.
we're in introduction.
I think we
So-
typically do that
Yeah,
before.
yeah. So we had,
Have
we had a
discussion.
motion by
Okay.
Commissioner Henderson, and I didn't hear if there was a second or not.
Second.
There was a
I
second.
did, I said
Oh,
second.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, folks.
It's getting hot up here.
Okay, now we do have a discussion about commission priorities.
Well,
and-
no, consensual annexation,
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
missed it.
yeah, so we need to read that
Okay,
into
city
the
clerk,
motion.
please read the next introduction of the ordinance.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Extending the Boundary of the City of Paducah, Kentucky by Annexing Certain Property Lying Adjacent to the Corporate Limits of the City of Paducah and Defining Accurately the Boundary of said property to be included within the said corporate limit." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby approves the consensual annexation of certain tracts of property contiguous to the present city limits located at 5345 Hinkleville Road, containing approximately 5.22 acres of land.
So moved.
Second.
Now discuss.
Now, Josh.
Good evening again, everyone. Thank you. This is a consensual annexation to come before you all. There are actually two parcels included in this, one on the south side of Hinkleville Road and one on the north. This encompasses these properties right here and this smaller one on the south side. Whenever the new alignment of Highway 60 came through, it cut through this particular piece of property. However, they are one piece according to the PVA, and she has requested both pieces of property to be annexed into the city of Paducah. For reference, this is Tractor Supply, and this is the new O'Reilly's Auto Parts. So it would be sandwiched in between those two, and that's the only peninsula of county that's between 5435 and 5325 that's remaining. And this ordinance and consensual annexation will move the ball further down the court to clean up our city boundary in that area. Upon adoption, the city limits would go from this point at 5345 on the south side straight across Highway 60. That way, there's not this jog. It would be included in the city limits now, but it would be more concise. and she is requesting Highway Business Zone, which would go to the Planning Commission on July 14th for that rezoning hearing. And I'm glad to answer any questions y'all might have.
Any questions? None for me. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you all.
Now, I've been wanting to get to Michelle, so I'll finally get there.
Do you want me to, I'll get it on the floor for you. Okay. All right, good evening. Tonight we'll be giving our first update on our 2022 commission priorities. We have quarterly reporting, and then also I try and get up here and talk about some of our accomplishments and where we're headed every quarter. So I just wanted to remind everyone that we have 10 commission priorities and 3 continuous improvement items. Everything that we'll be talking about tonight is available on paducahky.gov/commission priorities. Our communications manager has done a great job creating web pages with lots of resources on each of these items, and then all of our reports are available as well. Oh.
Like
Yes, okay, here. That's really odd. The presentation went blank. Give me 1 minute to reopen it, Claudia. Hang on. Give me 1 moment, please.
Sure.
Okay, let's try again. Okay. Try this. So this is just a quick overview of our process. The priorities were adopted during a retreat with the Board of Commissioners and leadership team. We're currently in implementation and communication and reporting. And really the big lift lately, in addition to all the departments working, is figuring out how to fund these priorities. So that was a large part of our budget discussions, was looking through the priorities and make sure they're funded. So with that, we'll go through key updates on the 10 items, commission priorities, and then the 3 continuous improvement items. So this has always been very conversational, so I'll hit on the key updates, and if there's any questions you have or additional information, please feel free to jump in on each item. I don't plan to spend a lot of time on 911 or the outdoor sports park because we've talked about them quite a bit, but this goal is really around our outdated infrastructure, evaluating revenue sources and governance. Of course, we have that joint committee meeting regularly, and we're also working on the RFP with federal engineering. With beautification, we have launched our Tyler 311 app, mobile service request app and web portal. We're actually looking at bringing an update to the board later this summer. In April, we had over 200 requests, with the top 3 requests being brush pickup, code enforcement, and then general inquiries that we routed. So Lindsay Parrish will bring an update to the board with some updated numbers because those are from April. And also we're continuing to market that service because we think there's room for improvement there of people to download it and use it for things like brush pickup, lease pickup, and code enforcement. So we'll continue to market that. Additionally, we have several city boards and commissions working on beautification. Our planning director has been working with the Creative and Cultural Council on things like public art improvement and gateway signage improvements. And I know the mayor has met with the Civic Beautification Board on different ways that they can get involved. So we do have a number of boards and committees working on different ways that we can beautify our community through art and signage.
Yeah, that's something, art. don't know if everybody saw the artwork that went up on one of the buildings downtown. It really improved the landscape down there quite a bit. And one of the things that I've been talking with the Creative and Cultural Council about, and I really hope it gets some legs, and it's going to cost some money for us to do it, so we'll have to figure out how to plan for it and how to budget for it. But, you know, there's one of those tanks on the south side coming in on the loop that's old and rusted out. And I had an initial conversation with I don't know actually how to pronounce the last name, but about the possibility of us kind of taking over that tank and putting artwork up on it. And initially they were open to that. So it's something that I'd really like, just an example, but something I would like to see us pursue, through that committee. And so, there's other, really beautification goes through everything that we're trying to do. A lot of our departments, as well as a lot of our committees. So we kind of have to take it one bite at a time.
Yes.
I got some input. I think I sent an email out. I got some input about our streets needing cleaning down around the market house. Somebody just remarked to me, that we needed to clean the streets because we had so many boats coming in, and it's just something that we needed to pay attention to. So, I invite that input from people in the community when they see things that need to be done. I always feed it back to people so we can continuously work on, and I know, Commissioner Wilson, you do as well. Street needs to be swept, things need to be. Sidewalks. We need to, we can't, really we can't have eyes and ears everywhere. We can't do everything all the time, so we get that feedback. We can certainly try to correct it.
I think we even talked about the entrance signs coming in. They could use some landscaping and some fluffing and some work too. And I know all of that costs a lot of money, but there are little things that could be done too, encouraging store owners to sweep in front of their store. And if there's an empty store next to it, to sweep, even maybe sweep their neighbors, just to kind of help keep the sidewalks clean. But
Yeah, a lot of these things are out of scope for the Civic Beautification Committee themselves.
yeah, it is.
So really they kind of, they fall somewhere else. Are you going to establish a new committee, or are you going to ask somebody on staff to take a look at it? I mean, that's, if we want to get some of those things done, we're going to have to figure out, make sure that we have funding for it, and then make sure, how somebody's going to be responsible, sort of lead the effort. So maybe that's something that we could, between now and the next update, we could maybe we could have some internal discussions about that.
Absolutely.
Sound good?
Absolutely.
Michelle, can you tell us how the 311 app service is working? Do we know do we have data on as to how many people have actually downloaded it? How many are using it? Is it working for us?
Yes, the data I have right now is through April. We pull it quarterly. So there's two ways you can actually access the service requested. One is a web portal, and one is through the mobile app. As of April, we had 200 uses overall. About 125 of those were the app, and 75 were through the web portal.
So that's actual uses of the app. That doesn't mean that's download.
That's not
just-
download,
just
that's
people that
service
actually use
request.
the app. Do we have a way of tracking how many people downloaded it?
We're working through that. We're working through that with our vendor, I
Okay.
guess is what I would say. Yep, we understand there's a request out there for that. We don't have that number now, but we're looking at how we can, we've been tracking more overall usage from service requests.
I think that's something that we offer that is underutilized. I mean, we're still early.
Yes.
It's still early. We just introduced it, recently within the last few months. But I think we all need to work to promote that, to figure out how to get people to download it and start using it, and we can try to be creative about that. So I think that's something that will help.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good challenge we can work on, internally with our team on maybe what are some ways we can work with people to, what's the word I'm looking for, to use it? Incentivize them to use it. What are some unique ways that we can? Because the really neat thing about it is that when you submit a service request, it goes directly to the right department. So it can actually expedite those requests because there's not a funneling through departments. And CEX is, our customer experience department helps manage those too. So they can make sure it's moving forward. But overall, it's been well received internally. And I think the app is working well technically. I think it's just getting more people to
I
use it.
just wanted to know, because I've been going around the city taking pictures and sending it in.
I think we should have,
Potholes.
I think we should have a contest among all the commissioners, to see who can get the most downloads going,
Oh, there you go.
Full competition, so.
I think I have it downloaded.
That's not what I was talking
I
about.
know.
My wife loves it, says it works wonderful.
Great. I'm glad to hear. There was a lot, I would be remiss if I did not say there was a lot of internal staff that worked hard on it. Sometimes I feel like I'm up here sharing the good news, and so got to make sure they get credit. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay,
Okay,
We're
we'll keep
good.
moving. Community growth, we are partnering with the county on a comprehensive plan update. I was just talking about that with our planning director and city manager today. We still have the remote workers program ongoing. We've had 27 applicants. 4 have actually received their incentive, and I believe we have 5 more in process right now that have been approved and are in process of moving to the community. And then we continue to work with those in the community that request consensual annexations, similar to tonight.
okay.
With operational efficiencies, part of this is really working on collaborating with the board and kind of bringing the directors and Board of Commissioners together to talk about our services. So we've invested, and you all have invested a lot of time with our departments, and that will continue. So far, you've met with fire prevention staff to talk about the construction development process, and then we just kicked off this week summer meetings with directors and, one-on-ones with the Board of Commissioners for about half an hour to talk about a specific service. So that's ongoing. And then, we have several things we work on continuously with operational efficiencies, trying to find ways to better provide those services. So that's really an ongoing process. And so Rick is our guinea pig. He was the first one. He's met with Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Galt, and so far, he's focusing on paving, the street paving summer program,
And he's getting a lot of good press on paving lately. I mean, bad press and good press. I mean, downtown's torn up, but when it's completed, everybody will be happy.
yes.
But,
And those are
I've got a lot of good
state projects,
comments, a lot of it's state,
Yeah.
so.
Right. Okay. Good. So downtown is always a commission priority, and this year we're really focused on supporting our merchants as we get the city block construction up and running. So really what we've been focusing on internally is developing marketing and promotional materials that we will be ready to roll out when the city block construction gets underway. We've also put a lot of effort into enhancing the knowledge around parking opportunities downtown, so striping city streets to show where parking is. We have, signs with QR codes to show where parking is. I know we have information available on the website. And also collaborating with merchants for special events that we're really driving foot traffic downtown through like the Water of Life Festival, and there's new Downtown Live events starting, I think, this Saturday. So really collaborating with the merchants on, communication, driving traffic or foot traffic downtown. I also am very excited to announce, and I did check with our communications manager and planning director that I could announce this. It will be a press release tomorrow, but we did receive Main Street full accreditation for 2022. So there will be more information coming out tomorrow, but that was one of the major goals as well.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
when did we last have full accreditation on Main Street?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm looking back at 19.
Yeah, I was thinking
I'm sorry.
2019,
Prior to
2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, well, that's really good, that's excellent, and I know we've got, a new Main Street director, and I know Nick and his staff are engaged with the board the Main Street Board. I know we have some open positions right now that we're trying to fill, but, engagement with our citizens is the key to success.
Yes.
So, that's excellent.
Great, yep, great news. Kudos to that team for their
It's a
work
big
on
deal.
that. Mhm. Okay. With housing, the heavy lift has been around the city surplus property. So we had an RFP process in May. We also tried to incentivize those or make those easier to purchase through different tactics. One was creating an interactive map with available properties online. That was one of the goals of this priority. And then we also worked on supplying single-family home plans at no cost if someone buys a property. So those were some of the things that the planning department did to try and incentivize buying those properties. Those are kind of the key highlights. I know there's been several spirited discussions just internally about working with developers on residential and how we can incentivize that and looking at different incentives that we have. So that work is ongoing, but this is where the primary focus has been.
Okay.
So with minority inclusion, we did complete the organizational DE&I training. HR has been working on next steps because we've always talked about that as a launching point for us. We did put a little bit of money in the budget as well for what those next steps look like. So we're really trying to work internally on what that looks like. We don't know quite what that is, but we're focusing on it. Also, we had PDAB representatives here at the Board of Commissioners meeting. And we do have staff that are attending those meetings. So the city manager recently attended. I know the mayor has attended. Our HR director has been invited to attend to help us, really talk about recruitment and how we get that diverse pool of applicants.
So back to the organizational-wide diversity, DEI, we did the training last year and we're talking about next steps. I mean, what are the next steps? How are we going to identify those? And I think that's something that, we need to have a priority on. I mean, so,
Yes.
how are we going to arrive at those, you think?
Well, we're working, we've tasked HR to provide that. We've reached out to some of our other organizations in the community. I know that you had met one at the college where several of the organizations came together. We continue those dialogue with that. But HR has been tasked with us to give us that roadmap forward.
And I know we have had conversations with that consultant on what those next steps look like, on additional conversations and trainings. And then I think the big key that we're really trying to focus on internally is where we recruit employees from. How do we advertise for it? How do we make sure that we're getting as a diverse pool of candidates as possible to become city employees? So I think it's really around that recruitment, really focusing on our recruitment and getting those applicants. And then I think we're figuring out the roadmap now of what those next steps look like.
Do we have I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Do we have a time frame as to when we can anticipate some kind of plans?
Sure. Well, the good news too is that our funding becomes available in July, so we're very excited for that. So I don't at this time, but for the next update, we will.
Okay.
Do you want-
Well, actually, HR is here, so.
Come on up, Stephanie.
We do, and I should have brought my notes on this. I've worked with Priya, who did the training this past spring. We do have some tentative dates set in September to continue the conversation of what is diversity, what does that look like for us? And she's got definite ideas and a direction to go. Exactly what those are, I'm not sure, but we do have some tentative September dates pinned down for her to be back here and bringing all the staff together again.
As much as it is appropriate for me to be a part of that, I'd like to be part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. We just really, this is an area we really have to be intentional about. We have to stay on it. It's not easy work. It's getting people out of their comfort zone. Clearly, there's departments, police and fire or two, where we need more diverse candidates. So we just, I know it's hard. I mean, I know we've all been trying. I know Commissioner Henderson himself has tried, or has been, but we just have to stay after it.
About being intentional in those efforts.
And then some of the things that we have done in relationship to try to open it up to more people to participate, to remove some of those obstacles to apply. And for example, with the fire department, we held our CPAP training here, rented at the convention center to allow that, so we didn't have folks that mobility or opportunity to travel, they didn't have to go out of the area to get that, and so brought that in. And so those are some of the things that we're doing as well.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Steph. Appreciate it. Okay, with protecting key historical and cultural resources, we have a number of items underway. The Civic Center construction documents are underway. We recently had a 50% construction document meeting. So there's some work that PFGW and our facilities group is doing the interim to get those to 100% so that we could take those out to bid. We don't have that meeting yet, but we know they're working diligently on it to get that done and understand that we want to get that out and construction underway. We also, part of this is making sure that Dr. Stuart Nelson's legacy is honored. And so we do have our parks team that has been attending those design working committees. We intend to talk about that in the interlocal agreement, is to make sure that he is honored with that new outdoor sports park. And then we also did put funding into the investment fund for some of these key historical buildings that may need some type of assistance from the city.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
So Commissioner Wilson and I have had a conversation with Brent Leggs, a couple of conversations, actually. And he, what is his title? Can you help me with that?
Well, he's with the National Cultural Historic Preservation, but then he runs a grant fund for African-American sites.
Yeah, he's been in the community.
He's from Paducah.
He's from Paducah. He's a twin brother here. He's located in Washington, D.C., and has access to grant funds. And he has made a proposal to us for doing a consulting engagement in the community here over this summer, actually, to identify and help us looking at some of our cultural assets.
Right.
He's very passionate about the Metropolitan Hotel. He mentioned, the original Oscar Cross House. We're going to get him involved in the Columbia Theater and some other assets. So we're working. We've got a document that's laid out some scope. I literally just got it today, so I haven't had a chance to share it with anybody, but I think there's some real potential to have him help us in the community. So I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of that, and you can weigh in. And then Darren will need to talk about, budgeting and that sort of thing. So anything to add?
Well, no, I was going to give you his title. He's the Executive Director of the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, and I think they have over $50 million in that fund, and the Senior Vice President of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. He's also been working with Mayfield on some of their restoration and restoring things, the church there, and has a lot of interest here. And we also asked him to include the Stuart Nelson, protecting the integrity of his name as it moves into the sportsplex. So, yeah, I think that was the main things. Oscar Cross House, protecting Stuart Nelson, Columbia Hotel Metropolitan, and then some on the south side. It was advising us from some perspective on protecting what we need to on the south side economic development plans.
Yeah, have you met him, Commissioner? Or do you know him?
I met him in Washington.
Oh, okay.
I
That's right,
met
yeah.
him then, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that other people in the community have the opportunity to meet him. I mean, he comes home, but when he's home, he's kind of on with his family.
Right.
So we did talk
Like
to
the
him
club.
about when he comes to Paducah to do this study, that we would try to get him to meet everyone to hear more about him and what he could do for us.
Yeah. he's a tremendous resource.
Absolutely.
So-
And he did oversee the grant that went to the Hotel Metropolitan for their
Right.
Purple Room.
Yes.
And he's very proud of it because when we were on the call with him, he
Well-
was texting us pictures of it. So he's very proud of the
He
impact
actually
that he's
texted
made.
me today that he gave a shout out to the Hotel Metropolitan. He was one of 50 black leaders, part of the Rising Futures Project, which was introduced last night by Oprah.
Oh, wow.
And it has his picture on there as being one of those 50.
And in relationship to the Hotel Metropolitan, outside of the Purple Room, Nick has been working with them on getting some documentation on the roof needs for there as well. And we've got a couple of proposals in from them that we're working through.
These are important, as we talked about, we don't want to lose something.
Right.
Great.
Okay.
Well, that actually leads very well into the next item, because we have a South Side update. We do have that steering committee up and running. They're having monthly meetings. So far, they've really been focused on the Coleman Park improvements, recreational opportunities, and some community engagement with the South Side this summer. The planning department is working also, parallel on an overarching draft plan that will be presented to the steering committee and will include different things like incentives for residential and commercial. And we have been building up some funds over the past 2 years to be able to fund these projects once we kind of vet them through the steering committee.
I attended a committee meeting this week at Blackburn Park, the South Side Committee. And they're focused on parks on the south side, and, they're planning on trying to get community input, community engagement on potential improvements. So I thought it went well. The only advice I had for them was to just try to make sure that we had a lot of staff there, and we had 3 community members.
Mm-hmm.
So there was probably about, I didn't count, but maybe 10 or 12 people there. So there was actually 3 residents, or 2 of them were residents, and 1 owned a business, but they're Southside Committee members. And so my, advice and counsel was just try to keep as many people that are actually living in the South Side involved in that project. But
You're right, it's where they play a really important role, especially as we start to look at incentives and those type of things, and
Yep.
we're gonna need that partnership.
For sure.
To vet those, definitely. Great.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Finally, on the trails and bike paths, so the real focus has been on the Greenway Trail extension. Phase 5 will be through the build grant, extending it downtown. We've started meeting internally to talk about option and tools for gathering community feedback for what Phase 6 looks like. And then the planning department is gathering documents for our existing bike plan information, because we have done that work in the past. So they're pulling it together to figure out, what makes sense, what next steps do we need. So I was just talking to Nick today about that and everything he's pulling together. So this one is, we're gaining momentum.
Yeah, it's a big one. I
Mhm.
mean, and there's nothing easy about it. Trying to figure out,
Right.
it's gonna take a lot of effort, to make an impact there, so. But I think it's something that the community would really appreciate.
Yeah.
Our work on it.
Mhm.
So, keep up the good fight.
Yeah, that's a real gem of our community, the Greenway Trail.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay, so finally, I'll just walk through a quick continuous improvement updates. We have, with this budget that's being passed, we have increased the funding on our facilities maintenance fund. We've had meetings we're starting to meet with departments so we can start projects in FY '23, this next budget year, and then they'll start paying it back in FY '24 per that policy. So this is really gaining momentum internally, and as you know, we have a big backlog of maintenance projects, so the staff is very excited to get this up and running, to say the least. And I have Chief Kyle beating down my door when I don't move fast enough, so we're moving on it, and Chris Yarber, I should say. With stormwater, we have $4 million in ARPA dedicated to projects. Sure you've seen the Buckner, this includes Buckner Bridge project as well as 25th Street. So Buckner Bridge project is underway. They're fixing that dilapidated bridge and also making that culvert wider to improve stormwater flow. And then 25th Street will have elements of curb and guttering and that type of thing to help with stormwater. So those projects are underway. And then finally, we have the outdoor sports facility. That's continuous improvement. The ILA negotiations are underway, and we have staff participating in that working group.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you. Our next report will come out in mid-July, and then likely we'll be back here in August with our next update.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
You're welcome. I'll get you a set, Claudia.
Okay, we're coming to the end, so any comments from city manager?
None this evening, Mayor.
Okay, comments from any of my fellow commissioners? None? Okay, quiet. Okay, we are going into executive session tonight. Okay, I'll need a motion to,
So you can read the.
okay, I'll let you move. I'll let you read the motion, please.
I move that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topic: a specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of a business entity as permitted by KRS 61.8101G.
So move.
Second.
Roll call. Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye.